Welcome, everyone, to Latinx Demographics and Diversity Screencast. This is prepared for the class SWK 724. This is the first screencast for the summer course of 2021. My name is Professor Yvonne Ruiz. The Latinx population in the United States continues to increase almost every year. The United States Census Bureau now counts 60.6 million individuals who identify as Hispanic, Latino, Latina in the United States. So as of 2019, 18% of the U.S. total population identifies as Latinx, or Latino, Latina, Hispanic. This is the largest minority group in the United States. Additionally, there are another estimated about 8 million unauthorized Latinx immigrants in the U.S. The last count was 2017. So together, there are almost 70 million individuals who identify as part of the Latinx population. Take a moment and think about what this means for the demographics in the United States overall. The visibility of Latinos, not only in Massachusetts, but in other states as well. There are communities in every state of the United States, and Latinx are making an impact in lots of different ways. Think about that for a moment. Can you identify some of the impacts on the United States culture, on the United States economy? For example, Latinx have a consumer spending power of over $4 billion. That has a big impact on goods and services. So that's just one example. Can you think of others? It's also important to recognize that there are different nationalities that identify as Hispanic or Latino, Latina, Latinx. As of 2018, the largest segment of the Hispanic population in the U.S. are identified as Mexican or Mexican Americans at almost 62% of the Latinx population. The next largest segment of the population are Puerto Ricans at 9.7%, Cubans at 4.0%, and then there are other nationalities that are also increasing very quickly. Salvadorans, Dominicans, Guatemalans, Colombians, and Hondurans, as well as growing population from Venezuela and some other countries as well. For example, there are over 33 Spanish-speaking countries who are identified as Hispanic or Latino countries. It's also important to recognize that there are regional variations in the communities of Latinx origins. For example, Mexican population are primarily located in California and Texas, and also in the Southwest, even though there are, again, communities who identify as Mexican American in many other states as well. Puerto Ricans are in the Northeast states, New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey, as well as in Florida. And the Cuban population is primarily located in Florida and New Jersey, even though, again, there are communities in other states. For example, I recently learned that there is a Cuban community in Kentucky. Specifically in Massachusetts, there are over 780,000 individuals who identify as Hispanic or Latino. This is as of 2019. And for us here in Massachusetts, our state is a hub for many international migrants who come to Massachusetts due to access to employment, education, and health care, looking for opportunities for themselves and especially opportunities for their children in education and for, they're all looking for a higher quality of life, looking for opportunities to make a living for their families and to thrive. In Massachusetts, the largest segment of Hispanic population identify as Puerto Ricans at 40% of that 780,000. Dominicans are the next largest group at 19%. Salvadorans, Mexicans, and Colombians also reside in Massachusetts. And the category of other includes Venezuelans. It might include others who identify as Spanish from Spain, as well as some other nationalities from other countries in South America and Central America. Massachusetts is also home to a large number of Brazilians. Brazil is located in South America. It is not a Spanish-speaking country. Its origins are Portuguese colonialists, so they speak Portuguese in Brazil. Brazilians often identify as well as Latinos, not necessarily as Hispanic, but as Latino. So as of 2015, there are over 500,000 people with Brazilian origins who live in the United States. But specifically in Massachusetts, there are over 90,000 Brazilians. And Massachusetts accounts for 18% of all Brazilians in the U.S. And Massachusetts has the second largest Brazilian population. Florida has the most with 19%, but Massachusetts is up there with 18%. This image is from the Brazilian Club at Boston University. So this slide gives you a sense of Latino groups by region in Massachusetts. So there is a large community of Mexicans who live in the Berkshires. North of Boston, there is the Salvadoran population, especially around East Boston and Chelsea areas. In the Boston area, there's a large community of individuals who identify as Dominican. In the Pioneer Valley, Springfield area, central Massachusetts area, there is mostly a community of Puerto Ricans. In the Northeast, Dominicans, Metro West, Brazilian, specifically in Framingham and surrounding communities. South of Boston and the South Coast, you'll find many individuals who identify as Puerto Ricans. And the Cape has a community of Brazilian, and west of Boston, Guatemalan. Again, this is just an idea. It doesn't include all of the groups who live in Massachusetts. It doesn't include the fact that some communities there are a mix of national identities. I also want to provide some additional demographics. So I mentioned the spending power of Latinos in Massachusetts is $4.6 billion. Now, despite the high amount of consumer spending, 27%, over a quarter of the population, lives below the poverty line. 67% of Latinos in Massachusetts participate in the labor force. and 18% possess a bachelor's degree or higher. And at the same time, over 12% of Latino adolescents leave school before graduating. And finally, I also want to mention that 51% of Latinos in Massachusetts are eligible to vote. As we know, the Latinx vote was very important in this past election, and with the projected increases of the population, political power and voting power will only continue to increase. And finally, this is the last slide of this screencast. It contains a link to a short YouTube clip specifically talking about Latino inequality in Massachusetts. And this is a companion to the reading that you had for this week about Latino invisibility in Massachusetts. So I hope you enjoy the YouTube clip and you find it informative. And this is the end of this screencast. Thank you for listening.